What makes a good love story? I don't know. It's just people getting lost in each other. That someone finding the best aspects of themselves in the presence of another person.
Yeah, and when everything else disappears.
Yeah,
around,
yeah.
it's like nothing matters anymore.
Yeah.
Really, the core of the film is this story of being saved by love and for love, I suppose.
And that love can overcome many negatives, you know. It's an inspiring thing for everybody. The thought that, you know, love transcends everything.
I mean, there is a love story that spans centuries, and it's a story of lost love, but it's so insanely romantic. I loved that.
If you don't love me now, no one ever will.
Beverly. Her name was Beverly.
Winter's Tale, the novel, I tried for years to figure out how to manage a screen adaptation, because Mark's book is big. You know, it's closer to 1,000 pages than the 120 that we get in screenplay form.
The book is so rich in detail and so rich in the amount of characters that play within it. I know Akiva distilled it down to a very particular thing, and that is the love story between Beverly and Peter and how that affects the lives of every single character.
Beverly and Peter's meeting, which Mark Halperin wrote so beautifully in the novel, is a very novelistic experience. It's one thing to write, they fell in love at first sight. It's another thing to do it, and it's really Colin and Jessica who did it.
Beverly, I think, by not having fear of, I suppose, the most terrifying thing, you know, the idea of death and what happens, most other things don't scare her in a way that they probably should. And so she sort of has this clarity about life rather than thinking, what's going to happen in the... I don't know. Something like that.
She's just crystalline in her clarity. And I'm breaking into her house and stealing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we meet. Yeah. So I break into her dad's house, right? Because
And
she's
then
loaded and she's a big gaff there in
Yeah.
Central Park. And I break in because I think there's nobody home.
Yeah.
And I hear
then
this
I'm
music.
there.
Squeaks.
What?
Squeaks.
Winter's Tale spans the earliest part of the 20th century all the way to the present.
Part of what's important in Winter's Tale is the idea of history and the notion that maybe time doesn't quite work exactly the way we think it does, or at least that the past and present are closer than we imagine. Because part of what I want to try to sell is the idea of past and present being somewhat interchangeable. Don't pay attention to what year it is. It's all kind of the same.
We're very fortunate to actually get to shoot our film all over the city of New York and all the boroughs.
Winter's Tale is such a New York object. It is so much about the city. The city is a character. I find that it's unique.
There's much of New York that existed in the early 20th century that still exists today.
There's something really special about that city. And for this story, the fact that it starts, you know, it sprawls over that time. It's a city that over, 100 years has just grown and flourished and become something that no one could imagine. And that's sort of what love is, really. You can never predict what it's going to become.
New York's kind of like the perfect example of the potential for human beings to coexist together, because it's 8 million people of so many different races and creeds and beliefs and ideals, and the island should be drowning in the Atlantic under the weight of human conflict, and yet people coexist really peacefully. And I suppose that's one of the essences of love, is the idea of coexistence, of coexisting in harmony with your fellow man or woman or whatever it may be. So in that way, New York felt like a perfect backdrop.
Somebody said to me, what's it like to make a movie and to be able to do everything you plan? And I thought, well, that's not at all what it's like to make a movie. The making of a movie is the interaction between what you imagined and the real world. Cut. And the same is true of love. I mean, yes, there is love without compromise, but you will do it by yourself. It's about interaction. It's about how your expectations and your imaginings line up with what is actually in front of you. You know, at the heart of Winter's Tale is true love. True love for all its infinite possibilities and disappointment. The truth of the movie is Peter and Beverly end up together, just not in the way you might imagine.
You know what Akiva wrote, that somehow there's balance, and the balance is achieved sometimes not within our own lifetimes, but over several lifetimes. And in this case, Peter Lake thought that fulfillment was going to happen with Beverly and that he was going to be able to save her, but really that's not what it meant. It meant that their love was so powerful that he would be able to stay alive to do the thing that he was meant to do, which wasn't the thing that he maybe would have chosen, but somehow still it was the thing that was right.
I think love stories are what let us continue on in the face of all kinds of adversity. It is that which draws us through life. It's the hope for, the belief in, the memory of true love that makes us human, I think. That's what the movie believes anyway.